At the preliminary hearing in 2014, the biggest question was whether Beck was killed during a BDSM session that went too far, or if she was brutally beaten to death in cold blood at the hands of the people she'd shared a home with for only 1 month. Well, I think the question's all wrong, and we'll talk about it next on the Chris Top program.
The Top, broadcasting worldwide on iHeartRadio and Spreaker.com.
Portions of the day's programming are reproduced by means of electrical transcriptions or tape recordings.
You can either talk in the Chris Top program.
I am the one and only Chris Top.
You can either talk in the Chris Top program.
Broadcasting live from my lavish studio apartment.
The VCR and the DVD, there was a night of black right back in 1970. We didn't know about the World War Web was a whole different game being played back when I was a kid. Wanna get down in a cool way, picture yourself on a beautiful day. Big bell bottoms and groove along here, just walking in style with a portable MP3 play. You can listen to the music on the Chris Top program. You can hear the music on the Chris Top program.
This is the Chris Top program.
And I'm the one and only Chris Top, broadcasting live from our lavish home studio in sunny Clarksville, Tennessee, with an ocean view. How in the heck are you doing, world?
Sup?
What's up with you?
Sup with you?
You know, you know what we're about to talk about, this story.
I have a stress ball for it.
The
This
thing
is the first show I've ever had a stress ball for.
Is that what you ran to get
Yeah,
before the show
I
started?
need a stress ball for this one.
Well, you know what's really disturbing about it is you expect to hear things like this on the news just about every day. But you don't expect to hear stuff like this happening in your own town.
Right.
That's the scary part, because now if you're tuning in, this happened a couple of months. Well, it happened back in 2014.
A couple of months ago, in 2014.
A couple of months ago, though, they were actually convicted.
Okay.
So that's what happened then. But just to put all this in perspective, but when I think of Clarksville as like a contemporary Mayberry. But I mean, every city has its dark underbelly. You know, every city has its mystery.
It does. I wish it didn't, and I wish it didn't have to.
Yeah, and I think part of what we have to do, because of what we do, because we broadcast, is we have to remind people, I think, in our community that things like this do exist next door. Just because you have to keep an eye out. You have to constantly watch for this stuff. Not saying you don't live your life, and not saying you can't be happy in Clarksville. I've been happy in this town for my whole life. But evil does exist, and it's right next door. And I think we're doing our duty by bringing this story back up again and giving our play on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, like, it's kind of hard to talk about some of the darker things, but sometimes the most, the uncomfortable things need to be said to keep people aware, and things like that to help them prevent it in the future.
Okay, now we're going to talk about Shirley Beck. Now, in case you don't know who she is, she's was given the name the House Slave, the Clarksville House Slave. I threw Clarksville in just because I want everybody to know that this did happen in my hometown. This isn't one of the things that I'm proud of that I talk about. But at the beginning of the show, I said the preliminary hearing back in 2014, the biggest question was whether Beck was killed during a BDSM session that went too far, or if she was brutally beaten to death in cold blood at the hands of people that she shared a home with. Now, for some reason, the courts and the paper, they're using the terms beaten to death. My question is, and I don't know the answer to this, but when does it change over from being beaten to being tortured? And I think that's a good, honest question. I mean, can you really beat somebody to death for 4 hours, or does that turn into torture after a while? Because to me, 4 hours is torture.
Yeah, if you beat somebody to death, I mean, you beat them and it's done. But when you keep going and keep on going, that's torture.
They revived her several times so they could torture her some more.
Then that's torture.
But I mean, where do you draw the line? Can you beat somebody to death for 15 minutes?
I don't know. I think the line is drawn when you keep it going longer than the human body takes it. I
just wonder, though, why they chose to use beaten to death as opposed to being tortured.
Because, I mean, the word torture sounds more grim and disgusting.
I think it has a lot to do with them maybe not wanting to offend the BDSM community. Because when you look at the community, it's all about torture. So I'm thinking they didn't use that word just so they wouldn't offend them. And I think that's wrong. I think that's being politically correct, and I don't agree with it.
I don't agree with the BDSM. I don't care. I'm going to say it. I'm always saying, what you do in your own business is your own business. But I personally do not agree with BDSM. I'm just going to say it.
I don't have a problem with somebody doing whatever they have to do behind closed doors as long as nobody gets hurt.
And I mean, that's your opinion, but I am strongly against this. I
don't have a problem with that, but I think they just did it so they wouldn't offend anybody in that community. And that in itself is wrong. Because when you I could have a whole show just on this topic. Because they're trying to save feelings, I guess, and not hurt anybody by calling it torture beside the acronym BDSM. To me, that is a crime in itself.
If you're going to report something, then you need to report it as it happened.
Call it what it is. It was torture.
Right.
It went on for 4 hours. They revived her several times. Now, if there are any younger people listening, if your kids are listening, you should probably just turn the show off. Maybe come back and listen to it a little bit later. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be graphic. But not, it's going to be pretty crazy graphic, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a child, I wouldn't want them, learning about this at such a young age.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to tell you specifically what Shirley Beck went through. And first, we're going to make several points during the show. One is, call it torture, because that's what it was. Number two is, we should not refer to these people as people. There were 4 involved. We should actually refer to them as monsters. Because people don't do this kind of thing. And that may seem like a petty topic for me to bring up. But had you thrown monsters and torture in the articles, I think it would have been pretty accurate.
How can a person do that to another person and still be considered a person?
Yeah, I agree. Now, my third point that I want to make, and you might feel like I'm reaching on this one, but I don't think I am. And I'm going to make sense out of this before it's all said and done. But 4 people were arrested. 4 people were convicted. 4 monsters. Maybe there's a 5th suspect. I know, you're confused. How does Chris Topp know something that the police don't know? How does Chris Topp know something the court doesn't know or the papers? Just listen to me. Just bear with me. All right, now, back to I'm trying to prove my point. Why we should call it torture and not just a beating. Now, the medical examiner, he testified that Beck suffered 13 broken ribs, a broken sternum, lacerations to her liver, and damage to her small intestine. There were also bruises and abrasions from her scalp to the soles of her feet. Altogether, multiple blunt force traumas contributed to her death, along with strangulation. And she also had very heavy internal bleeding as well.
Nobody should ever have to go through that.
No, and this went on for over 4 hours. Over 4 hours. Now, this is what a spokesperson from the actual BDSM community had to say. When you're punishing a submissive or slave, you have to use caution. You have to use common sense. You don't want to damage the property and it wind up in the hospital or, like in this case, dead. And this is some of the stuff that actually happened during the torture. Somebody testified and said Tuesday that Reynolds and Richardson, those were 2 that were involved in it hit or kicked Beck more than 60 times and revived her after she passed out, only to string her up by a cord in the ceiling and continue beating her until she died. Now, she testified that Skipper, and Skipper was actually the female, the mistress. She testified Skipper gave the order for the punishment, and there was another guy that participated by striking her with a flogger. So, goes on for 4 hours. They revive her. All this damage is done to her body. I mean, if you just wanted to beat somebody to death, you could do that in 5 or 10 minutes, probably with your fist. But they used a lot of other instruments in this. They strung her up like a pig from the ceiling and beat her for 4 hours. That's torture. I don't care if you're trying to save the feelings of the BDSM community. Call it what it is. I'm not going to go Frankenstein style and go after everybody in the BDSM community because you call it torture. I'm not going to do that, but call it what it is. They tortured Shirley Beck to death. That should have been in the headline somewhere. That's my play on it. Now, I'm going to get back to the point that I'm trying to make, where there should have been a fifth suspect in this. There's 3 men, 1 woman that we'll call monsters. Now, before Shirley Beck was a housewife, before Shirley Beck was a house slave, forced to eat dog food and serve her roommates, she was a wife who felt something was missing from her life. Now, I'm getting this from an old article in the Leaf Chronicle. Before she was a victim of murder, she was a mother. Now, there's not a whole lot that's known about the life that Shirley Beck led before she moved to Clarksville. And she actually moved to Clarksville back in October of 2012. She came here. She came to our hometown to learn about BDSM.
It's an odd place to learn about BDSM.
It is, isn't it? I mean, you would expect a larger city, right. I guess.
Something like New York or Vegas.
But she came here to do it. I don't understand. But she came here. Well, actually, there was a man that she came to meet. She'd found him online, and she'd hoped that the guy would become her master.
She had hoped this.
Right. That's what she was shooting for. So anyway, she ended up with him for a while. She met another mistress that she became friends with for a little while. And from what I've read and from what I've researched, she kind of went back and forth between different masters or mistresses until she finally landed in the house at 108 Wilson Court. And that's where she was strung up and beaten to death, or tortured, rather, for 4 hours. Now, I'm going to tell you... Oh, what's that?
Sorry. You were saying that there was, something missing in her life, so she chose this. Mm-hmm. My thing is, everybody's got something missing in their life, and I don't think this is the way to go. I'm not saying it's her fault. It's definitely not her fault. But this road is just not the way to go.
Well, like I said, to each their own, and I'm sure there are lots of people that practice this, probably people we know and we don't even know they do it, because it's not something you would actually go around and just discuss, around the coffee table, around the water cooler at work. So I'm sure lots of people we know probably do it. But again, I think there's something else to this story, and I'm going to let you in on that in just a little while, on the fifth suspect theory that I have. But first, we're going to take a little bit break, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss that. I've got Don in the chat. Hey, Don, how you doing? Oh, it's Don Landworth. Good to see you, buddy. Don, this actually happened in my hometown of Clarksville, sunny Clarksville, Tennessee, with an ocean view. So we're gonna come back, and I'm gonna dig just a little bit deeper. We're gonna take a break. Don's in California. See, he's in California where stuff like this happens all the time. I'm kidding. But you are absolutely, positively in the right place. This is the Chris Top program, so don't go anywhere. The shows usually aren't this dark, but I've been trying to talk about my hometown more, and I don't know why I chose this topic. I guess I felt like it was just important to talk about. And what do you think? Because this isn't normally what we do.
Yeah, we're normally all positive and not this.
And I don't think there's one single positive thing we can get out of this show.
No.
I mean, once it's said and done, I don't think that there's anything that's positive, aside from just being aware in your community.
Right.
And knowing that this stuff does exist.
Being aware is a good thing because then you can, see it before it happens.
Yes. So, I don't know, man. It's some crazy, crazy stuff. It really, really is. Okay. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
Did you ever think you could afford an interior designer?
No, way too expensive. Besides, I've got style.
If you had style, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Ouch. Interior designers are for rich people.
Magnolia Emporium.
Magnolia Aquarium? Is that like for some crazy flower fish?
No, Magnolia Emporium. Randy's clients range from nurses and teachers to musicians, actors, and even some royalty thrown in there.
Oh, I'd be on the royalty side.
You really don't have any swag, do you?
No, I don't.
That's where Randy comes in. He listens to exactly what you want, whether it's spoken or unspoken.
Okay, if you mean he can read my mind, there's lots of things I don't want Randy to know.
No, he has a great feel for what he does.
Okay, where can I find Magnolia Emporium?
Just go to magnoliaemporium.com.
We want your space to reflect your success.
All right, let's call it what it is. Let's not worry about hurting people's feelings because Shirley Beck was obviously tortured. 4 hours, she was strung up. She was tortured for 4 hours. We discussed in detail exactly what happened, how they did it. These aren't people at all. These are monsters. And I believe I have the information as well on the pieces or the parts that they played in this. And if you saw their pictures, it looks like something right out of a movie. Like, what was that movie, Wrong Turn? Or so, it's just creepy looking people.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I see the picture.
Yeah, and it's, and some people might be listening to this thinking, ooh, mistress, but no. No, it's not.
No.
Not like that at all. Not like that at all. Now, 2 roommates were found guilty of murder, and 2 others were convicted of a lesser charge on the beating death of the house slave of Shirley Beck. Matthew Lee Reynolds, Alfonso Richardson were found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder, first-degree murder, and an especially aggravated kidnapping. I'm not sure where the kidnapping comes in this.
I don't know about that because she wanted to go.
Yeah, she was
really
there on her own
kidnapping?
free will. There were even people that had asked her, they saw her walking around the complex. They saw that she had bruises. They told her she should go to a safe house, but she didn't go. One of the guys, one of the maintenance guys, actually, I think she bummed a cigarette off of him on the complex, and he offered to get her help, and she said, no, things are going to be okay. So she seemed quite calm toward the end under those circumstances, but that's not the first house she'd been in. She'd only been there a month. But anyway, let me finish up talking about some of these people here. But both those guys could face life in prison. Could face life in prison. I don't know why that's even a could.
They should.
Which means that if they live long enough, they could see parole after 51 years.
51 years?
Yeah, I don't see
They should
that.
have gotten a life sentence for that.
They should have. Now, the mistress, Cynthia Diane Skipper, who kept Beck as a house slave, was found guilty of lesser charges. And see, I don't understand her.
Even though she's the one that ordered this to begin with.
Yeah, her and the Derek Vachito guy, they were both found guilty of lesser charges, but they were there. And you can't tell me that they tried to stop it or they didn't get some sort of sick arousement out of the whole situation, because that's probably what happened. And I'm sure they probably urged it on. So I don't know why they would get any less than the other 2 do.
Because I guess they weren't actually laying hands on her when she died.
Yeah,
so
I don't
they're
get
being
it.
all technical like that, but I think it's
I don't
ridiculous.
understand. I mean, had Cynthia called 911 and said, hey, this is going too far, or I don't know. It just seems like something else could have happened. But the whole thing that started this, I guess one of the guys is crazy. He thought Shirley was trying to poison him. So he woke everybody up, and that's when they strung her up and beat her to death. But obviously she wasn't trying to poison him. That never came out in the evidence that she was. So they thought she was trying to put poison on his drinking glass so she would drink it or something like that. But anyway, now I know you're confused, and I know you've heard this story, especially if you live in my community. I know you've heard this story, and there were 4 people that were convicted, but I think there could be a 5th. And I'm going to tell you what's leading me to this. Now let's look at Shirley for a second. Now Shirley, she obviously has no problem uprooting and moving somewhere else. She left her husband. She came here to Clarksville to be with some guy so he could be her master. Maybe he wasn't tough enough on her, so she moved to the next one. Maybe they weren't tough enough on her. She moved to the next one. Kept moving till she found somebody, till she found the right monsters who could complete the task that was before her. She was very calm, even though she was bruised, when the maintenance guy bummed a cigarette off of her. Offered to get her help. She said, no, things are going to be okay. Now, Shirley's history shows she did not have a problem whatsoever uprooting and going somewhere else. So why wouldn't Shirley just walk away from this whole situation? Find somebody else that was a little less violent. So my 5th suspect, I think Shirley wanted to die. It's as simple as that. I think she wanted to commit suicide.
That is not who I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. So I think she played a part in her own murder. I think she knew that they were going to do it. She was ready to die. She let them do it. What do you think? Did I blow your mind?
You did blow my mind because it's not typical to blame the victim. I mean...
Well, you would blame a suicide. I mean, if she cut her own wrist, you would blame her. But, you really couldn't do anything about it if she was dead, right?
Right.
She's a murderer. She murdered herself. So I think, and I really feel strongly about this, I think she knew that they would eventually kill her, and she let them do it. And maybe she didn't ask them to do it, but she knew they would, and she probably, after a month, knew what buttons to push to take them over the edge. That's what I think. I think otherwise, I think if she didn't want that, I think she'd have been out of that house in 2 days. I think she'd have moved on to the next person.
She should have gotten help.
She didn't want help. She was ready to die.
What was so bad about her life that she wanted to die? Didn't you say she had a kid?
Yep, she's got a kid. I believe his name's Jacob. She actually used Jacob as her safe word. When things got out of hand, she would utter Jacob.
Why didn't she stay home and raise her child? How old was her child?
I don't know. Don says this is more like working on being awful. And it's good to see you, Don. He says, I'm still fighting with Sirius about his tapes. So he actually has a show on Sirius XM.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I envy Don.
You envy him?
Yeah, for being one of the big guys. But no, he's got a great show. It's is it still called The Free COO? He says, Shirley, you jest. I'm not jesting, and don't call me Shirley.
I don't get it.
That's from The Naked Gun.
Oh, I've never seen that movie, so I wouldn't get
But
that.
I mean, I just wonder, though, what other people would think about my theory. Do you think it's far-fetched?
They would be just as mind-blown as I am right now, because that's the last thing we do. We say, like, I even said it as, like, I'm not saying it's her fault, but...
Yeah. And this is total conspiracy right here. I mean, what if she didn't want to kill herself because her child wouldn't get her life insurance? So, instead she's beaten to death, a.k.a. tortured, by these guys. So then her kid is good to go. I mean, it could be... I'm just saying.
Why would she want this? She had a husband, that probably loved her.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. She left the guy.
That.
He might have been beating her too. We don't know that. We have no idea. But anyway, it was a messed up life. It really, really was.
It was really sad.
Yeah. So we'll come back. We'll close this one up here in just a couple of minutes. The Chris Top program will be live at legendary B.B. King's downtown Nashville, Tennessee. Everyone is welcome to stop by anytime and listen to your favorite artist interview June 9th, 10th, and 11th. For a detailed schedule, go to thechris.topprogram.com. Oh, and don't forget about the WABA Awards 2016. Award ceremony starts at 6 p.m. June 11th, and it's also at B.B. King's. We're talking red carpet pictures, door prizes, and entertainment. This entire event is free thanks to Magnolia Emporium and B.B. King's. Oh, I do remember the first time I met Monday's Mona Lisa. They were just getting started. Nobody had a clue who they were. I remember talking to the guys about a song they were writing at the time. I mean, they were big fans of the Chris Top program. Who's not, right? So they were writing a song about covering up a picture of an ex-girlfriend with the Chris Top program logo. I said, guys, that's really flattering, but why don't you try Katy Perry instead? Performing live from legendary B.B. King's downtown Nashville, Tennessee during the Chris Top program's WABA Awards 2016. Fun starts at 6 p.m. on June 11th. This is a free event, courtesy of Magnolia Emporium.
This has been a Chris Top production.
You can either talk in the Chris Top program.
Mr. Pop.
Take it from the top.
All right, so just one more time. I think if I want to hit any of these points home, I think sometimes when you see somebody that's in that type of a situation, I think you have to look at it from a different perspective. Maybe the problem wasn't that she was getting beaten. Maybe the problem was that she just didn't want to live anymore. So maybe that should have been addressed in a different way. I mean, like the maintenance guy that approached her, he said several times, maybe we should look at things in different perspectives. Because I think she would have left. It's not like she was married to the guy for 50 years and then he started beating her. You hear those stories about how women stay with guys that do that. But that's not the case with her. She's the kind of person that would have picked up and left.
This is a problem either way, though. I mean,
It's a problem either way. It really is. I'm hacked off, though, at the media for calling it a beating instead of torture, because it was torture. It was obviously torture. And I don't care who you offend by calling it torture. Call it what it is. And they're monsters. They're just monsters.
It's the saddest story I've ever heard. And I mean, it happens all the time, and it's like, why? Why?
Now, I do want to promote Don a little bit, because me and Don go way back.
Now this.
Don's like a big buddy of mine. Now this. Okay, the name of Don's show, and I really, anybody that goes back and listens to this, I would really love for you to go and listen to Don's show. It's called Bay Area Ventures, and it's on Sirius XM Channel 111, Business Radio. And it's powered by the Wharton School. So make sure you go and you check Don out, because he's got a lot of great insight within the business community. I know he's helped a lot of people with startups and those types of things. So and plus he's just a cool guy. Don. I think Don would help anybody out.
He's one heck of a guy.
He really, really is. He's a good guy. I've never met Don in person. We've talked on the phone a lot, and we've talked on Skype. I'd like to give the man a hug one of these days. I keep trying to talk him into coming to the CMA Fest.
You should come to the CMA Fest.
Yeah, but he does other stuff.
Excuses.
He's a busy guy. I think last year, he was actually playing poker in Las Vegas.
He was playing poker in Las
Vegas.
Vegas.
Well, that's important. That's it's important stuff. I mean, why? I would like to go play poker in Vegas. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
I think I'd be good at poker, because I used to play this game about pirates at Pirates of the Caribbean, and I was really good at liar's dice, and I was really good at poker, so I think I'd be a poker playing champ.
Don says we're bros.
Ooh, bros.
So we're bros. I say I give him a hug, and then I give him a manly fist bump.
What's the difference between a regular
no
fist
homo.
bump and a manly fist bump?
I don't know. It just sounded right. Now, we're going to do 2 live shows tomorrow. Are you prepared for this?
I'm so excited for this.
Now, these are going to be in studio. These are going to be our first actual in studio interviews. So it's pretty exciting. And I'll give you a little insight on what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But the first show's at 5 o'clock. And we've got not Haley on, but we've got her husband and her friend that are going to be here in the studio. And they are actually trying to get her to, I forget where. I want to say California, maybe. But we'll touch the details tomorrow. But they want to get her to see her mom, who has stage 4 ovarian cancer, which is a pretty big deal. And Haley doesn't have a lot of time left to spend with her mother. So he wants to get her out there to see her mom and to spend some time with her. And we've also got Jesse on the show tomorrow, who is a good buddy of mine now. I had a chance to meet him a couple of days ago. We sit down and ate together, actually.
Now that he knows you're not some weird stalker guy.
Yes, thank goodness. I can see how he would have thought that.
Want to be on my show?
Hey, you want to be on my show, dude? But no, then once he knew that I was legit in the community, and we met and talked in daylight.
In daylight.
In broad daylight.
Not in the dead of night behind some
Right.
shack.
Jesse is a fighter. Jesse has actually fought with brain cancer 2 times. He's going his 3rd time around, and there's some really promising procedures that can be done in Colorado. So he's got to raise several $1,000s, and I'm going to brag for a second because I'm pretty happy about this. But after the show went out, it was shared just hundreds of times, and I think within a day and a half or so, his funds went up another. I think it was like $1,200.
Yeah.
And I feel like we had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, and that makes me feel really good and warm and fuzzy inside.
Yes, and the community just really, really stepped it up and started throwing money in. But we're going to have these special people on the show tomorrow. And Don, I'd like to urge you, if you can, to maybe go to the sites. You can find them on my Facebook page and throw in $5.
Oh, me.
Because Don is sending his prayers out to all of them. And I appreciate that, and the prayers are great, but so's $5.
So's $5.
We need that as well.
Both are good.
Yes.
Oh, pick me.
Oh, what's up?
Pick me. All right, so it's great because it's like a chain of inspiration. We started talking about something that was there. There was a need there, and we talked about it, and people listened, and they were inspired, and they did it. And that inspired other people. I'm sure somebody was like, hey, I listened here and I donated. You should donate too because this is really important.
Absolutely.
And it's a chain of inspiration for a bunch of people to do good. And that's freaking amazing.
It is neat. And
that makes me so happy.
And our Clarksville listenership's really going up. So I'm hoping tomorrow when we have them on that we'll have a lot of people in Clarksville tuning in. I mean, it went up by 40%. Which is pretty big for us. So we're really happy with that. Now, Don, I'm not sure how many people are in your household, but we gave 10 because there's 2 of us. We should have counted the cats.
Oh, those cats.
We may have to go back and do 10 more because of the cats. So, Don, if you've got, I know you're married, and I'm sure you have pets, so you might want to donate $5 per. But he's already said he was going to donate, so I appreciate you doing that, Don.
Maggie's not smart enough to donate.
Well, we'll have to donate for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. But tune in tomorrow. We would love to hear from everybody. We'd like to see those numbers go up, too, on those GoFundMe pages, too, for those fine young adults.
Yes.
Because I'd love for Haley to get to see her mom, and I would love to see our buddy Jesse get his treatment that he needs for sure. And Don also says, best wishes for a great WABO award. Sorry, I can't be there. He's got to go
playing
play
poker again.
So Don's going to do $10.
He's defending his championship at the poker tournament.
Yeah, he's got to go play all the superstars and celebrities and
do
stuff.
things in Vegas that people do in Vegas.
And then he won't talk about it when he gets back.
Because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
I love you, Don. I really do, man. Thank you for tuning in live. And if you're listening later on, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about the chat box or the voices in my head, then you're probably listening to an archive show on iHeartRadio or Stitcher or one of 30 other sites. And I appreciate the hell out of you doing that as well. I don't care how you listen, as long as you listen.
Right.
It makes me happy.
You can listen in the bathroom.
I do that a lot. I do.
I've done it.
I do. I really do. Sometimes we listen to the show, too, when we're going to bed.
Yes,
it puts me right to sleep. And
it's the opposite with me. I cannot fall asleep to the show.
as long as I can sleep, then we're good.
Bruh.
What? But I do appreciate everybody for tuning in. There's a million other things you could be doing, but guess what? You chose to listen to us. It makes us feel pretty darn good. So until we broadcast again, please remember this. Life is good, and we're gone.
Maybe a dark things might be looking grim. I guess it's time for an acronym.
2, 3, 4.
W-O-B